I love Airbnb, I love short-term rental investing, and I love helping clients do this. And if you don't know me, my name is Nick. I run my B&B Accelerator along with my partner and 15 other people on the team. And we've helped close on over 300 homes for over 200 clients in the last few years. So there are a few months left in the 2025 calendar year. It's a phenomenal time to be buying short-term rentals if you're interested. And I'm gonna give you my honest, raw, hopefully unfiltered take on what I think about Airbnbs, what I think about the whole market, where we like to buy, and then if I could start everything over, would I do this again? Would I do something different? And I'm gonna give you an honest take because towards the end of this video, I will definitely talk about something that's not short-term rentals that I also think makes a ton of sense for people who are looking to invest right now, and also where I'm going in addition to doing short-term rentals in 2026 and beyond. So first thing I'm gonna start with is why short-term rentals and why now? I think the biggest reason to do this is, number one, for me, it was a tax savings thing. So in 2021, this was the first calendar year that my business partner and I were doing really, really well with our medical consulting business. We were on pace to do over $1 million in profit that year. So if you split that between the two of us and then the very small nominal like W-2 income that we were both paying ourselves, it was over $500,000 that we were both going to make in that calendar year. So first thing I did, my CPA told me in July of that year, which was, hey, you know, the way you guys are pacing, and if you're gonna continue at this pace, you guys are probably gonna make over 400, maybe over 500, maybe over 600 grand this year, and your net effective tax bill is gonna be this. And he told me a dollar amount, and I said, what is it gonna be if we, you know, both get to like 500,000? And he said, it's gonna be slightly over like 110, 120, 130, 140, depending upon how much over, you know, 500 you think you're gonna be at. To fast forward to what my tax bill would have been if I did nothing that year, I think including my federal and state income tax, it would have been around 140. So just to keep that number in mind. So I immediately, you know, I had used some very colorful language at that time. I said, F that, Mark. Like, I don't want to pay my tax bill. Is there anything I can do about it? So he told me, hey, there are basically two buckets of what you can do. You can do legal stuff and illegal stuff. In the illegal stuff, which he obviously advised, don't do this. He talked about things like conservation easements, which is like buying land and donating it to the government. Actually, that one wasn't illegal. That was very, very compliant, but it was like sketchy to me. I didn't get it. A few years later, I revisited the process and I was like, yeah, I'd still rather just do traditional real estate investing with like short-term rentals. So he told me about oil and gas rigs. He told me about buying like tax credits, which again, I've like heard other CPAs explore that topic as well. To me, that one made no sense. The gas and oil stuff, it was very, very interesting, very intriguing. CPA at the time did pair me up with a couple of their clients that they had helped do it. They told me in all honesty, like they wish they could go back in time and not have done it and maybe explored something else. And I think their main reasoning was just very risky, very volatile. When gas prices or per barrel of gasoline or whatever goes like above a certain threshold or down beneath a certain threshold, you need to either like stop drilling or start drilling. And it was like a huge timing thing. And like you were drilling and losing money on this thing. One guy said he lost over like 100 grand in like 3 months of running his own gas and oil rig. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to do that. I told my CPA, I was like, I do know that real estate is an option. And I think this was right after he told me about short-term rentals. So I said, okay, so the real estate thing. So I know about this. I did do real estate investing before. My CPA knew this. In 2019, I bought in with, I think it was 5 other partners. Milwaukee, Wisconsin, we bought 2 duplexes together. These projects ended up actually working out really well. I pulled out, fast forward. So late 2019, I did do something, but wired in like 180 grand. We were gonna fix and flip 2 duplexes, refinance our money. So within like 90 to 120 days, by the time the renovations were done, we were just gonna pull out all our funds with a refi and then just plug them into the next project. And the goal with them was to basically either burr, so just improve the properties and then hang on to them, or basically flip them and take the proceeds out and just go do this again and again and again. I mean, I was really interested, and it was 2 guys that I'd known for a really long time. I was always really curious in real estate, but I think it was like literally November of that year. I had just decided that I was going to move to Denver. We were doubling down on our medical consulting business. I brought in a partner. He had brought in me. So we joined our companies together, and I was not interested whatsoever in everything that was going on in Wuhan. You know, flu, and there was stuff, you know, where people were like freaking out over there. And I was like, is this coming to the US? And there were like rumors and rumblings of stuff that was like starting to spread. And I was like, okay, I think this is going to be something very significant, and I'd rather not be in real estate while this is going on. So I think I'll just pull the plug. And I asked my partners to basically just buy out my equity position, and they were like, no problem. So now fast forward to that period in 2021. So I told my CPA about this, and he was like, yeah, with short-term rentals, you can do this no problem. You do need to do, and he gave me those 3 criteria. So you need to buy something or multiple homes this year and place them in service. You need to buy them and get them live this year. I said, that's no problem. He said you would need to run them as short-term rentals, and specifically to qualify, the homes would need to be 7-day stays on average, entire duration of a guest staying there. And I said that was obviously no problem because all my Airbnb, you know, experiences, I'd never gone for more than 7 days. So I was like, I can't imagine anybody staying at my place for more than 7 on average. And then the third criteria was you need to do minimum 100 hours. And I was like, well, that sounds easy. easy. You know, can I track the hours that I'm spending with you on this call? Can I track the hours while I'm under contract, while I'm supporting the close, post-close? Like, do I need to do a lot, need to do a little? He didn't give me the clearest answer, and then I ended up going down the rabbit hole. Before ChatGPT, you can find case law examples, or that you can go to like an IRS ATG, Auditor Tax Guide, and then find examples that they reference of scenarios where a taxpayer bought short-term rentals, and then they basically had a standoff with the IRS, to put it nicely. Did you actually participate? Did you do these material hours of participation, or did you not do them? After uncovering those case studies and then reading through them, and then I think a couple years ago with the advent of ChatGPT, I just fed a bunch of these into one like ChatGPT model and then asked like, hey, can you reverse engineer what somebody should or shouldn't do to ensure they're hitting these 100 hours? And it became quite obvious. It's the whole premise of this short-term rental loophole. The IRS does want to incentivize investors, taxpayers like you and I, investors for buying property, running or continuing to run it as a short-term rental, and then incentivizing you with the tax benefits. What they don't want to do is they don't want to give those tax benefits to people who aren't necessarily running the businesses as active income businesses. So the thing the IRS doesn't really want to see, according to these case law examples, is people who are very, very passive in their participation in the business, or actually running the business as a passive income activity. So there were two scenarios that I found. One example of a lot of the cases where there were people who, and this sounds ridiculous in hindsight, there were people who bought long-term rentals at the beginning of the year. They ran them as long-term rentals and they had a tenant in the property. And then March, they got the tenant in there. And then September, October, November, whatever, they like have to evict the tenant, which is not uncommon in long-term rentals, which is kind of why I hate long-term rental, because it's actually full of headaches. So I saw that there were people who, in these case examples, were basically deciding to launch the property on Airbnb for like 6, 8, 10 weeks of the year, and then get a few bookings in there, and then claiming that they were running it as a short-term rental for the entire year. And then privately, without disclosing to the IRS, they ended up switching those properties back to long-term rentals the following calendar year. So basically what they decided to do was not disclose to the IRS, yeah, I bought this property in February, but from March, when I secretly had a tenant, until November, which they're secretly not telling the IRS, I was just working on improvements, and this like $2,781.36 that I was receiving in rent payments, oh, that was just my, consulting business that I launched through my LLC name, which happens to have a real estate name. So it's like, these case studies were literally stupid. It's very obvious in hindsight that, and the IRS, got them good. So that was one scenario. It's just obviously this is why the short-term rental loophole is in place, is to prevent people from doing this nonsense stuff. And then the other one was, there were case law examples of people who participation in the business was definitely very like wishy-washy. So there was one in particular where I think the guy bought something in the panhandle of Florida, and he lived no more than like maybe an hour or 2 hours ways, like Seaside, Florida is I think where he lived, something in like Destin or Panama City Beach or somewhere in that area. And he and his wife, they actually did participate over 100 hours in the business, but they didn't substantiate what they were doing during those hours. And it became very clear in the auditing process. The court recognized that they were basically just vacationing out there, not doing anything on the business, and it was fraudulent misrepresentation of their hours while they were there. So for example, they bought a home. They did spend some time at the beginning of the business, like getting it furnished, I think doing some other like remodeling or renovations, but the rest of their participation, like they said they spent like 600 hours on the business. And basically what they did is they just logged all their vacation hours, which was like a literally stupid example. And I was like, why would you even be that aggressive? So that was when I also discovered that there is a maximum limit on the use case for just vacationing in the home. So basically what we've recognized and what we help clients always do is there's a very nicely predefined window that I think makes a ton of sense for people to participate in their business. So right after you close, just spend a nice 2, 3, 4 day weekend visiting the property, overseeing a lot of if there are general contractors there, if there are landscaping teams there, if there's a designer or furnishing team there, whoever's there, you're overseeing what they're doing while you're at the property, even while you're away from the property, I would argue. And then also anything to do with, the actual material improvements that you make to the business. So 2021, going back to my anecdote for when I got started, I ended up buying 2 deals that year. The very first one that I did, I think we closed in August or September. I was with a friend of mine, and he also became my business partner on that first deal. He had already bought, I think, like 6 to 8 Airbnbs and maybe like some multifamily stuff throughout the years. So he was also very excited when he learned that I had decided that I was going to do short-term rentals, because he had this really cool model where he would actually help people purchase short-term rentals so long as he would get a 50-50 equity split in the deal, 50-50 revenue split on the deal. He would put up no money to close on the home. So I would be the capital contributor and he would be the sweat equity contributor, meaning he would do all the legwork of finding the deal, negotiating it, pairing me up with a lender, the agent, title company, whatever. Which fast forward to where we're at now, I was like, dude, I love this model. Like, I think I want to turn this into a company. And it's certainly worked out really, really well. So I did that deal. I think it was $540,000 purchase price. And then about about, I think like 2 weeks after the closing, I saw him and one of our mutual friends almost getting done with like the design work. And I was like, okay, so we're gonna get this live on Airbnb and we're gonna see how this does. I think right around that time, maybe a week or two later, I was like, I think I've got the blueprint kind of figured out. Because I'd been sitting in AirDNA, I'd been using other tools at the time, like Price Labs I was using back then, Rabu I was using back then, and I've certainly evolved through the tool set that I like to use now. And what was really cool is I basically learned, I think if I buy another like 750 to 950,000 in real estate before the rest of this year, according to my CPA and according to what he was telling me is a cost segregation study estimate for that $540,000 home, I should pretty much have enough real estate to pretty much almost zero out all my income that I was paying myself from my business and then the small W-2 salary that I was paying myself as well. So fast forward about a month and a half, 2 months later, I was closed and already broken ground on designing my second home that year. So that one ended up being, I think it was around like 820, 840 in purchase price. So across those two homes, I had bought right between 1.3 to 1.4 million in real estate. Around 270 to 300 grand of that total amount was land value. And then the rest of it was assessed value that I basically ordered 2 cost segregation studies on. And I think the final amount that I got back, it was around like 40 something percent of whatever the total assessed value was, that anything that had, I think it was under a 5, 7, 10, 15 year lifespan at the time, whatever the criteria was that year, I was able to front load all that depreciation into year 1. So it ended up being 2 homes that I closed on. I think I put all in 160 to 170,000 all in across both of those homes. And then the net effective tax savings on that business, I did show an extra like $100,000 of offset or losses that I could take against my like 500,000 plus ish income. My tax bill would have been like 130, I think maybe like 140, 150, 160 if you include the state tax. I ended up paying a little bit of state tax that year, but my federal was completely wiped out. I think I paid no federal income tax that year. So around 1.3, $1.4 million worth of real estate. For me, it was around 170 all in. The first deal, I did a very low money down deal. The second deal, I used a secondary home loan product, which fortunately I did qualify for that one as well. That was 10% down. The closing costs were very small. I got a seller credit back, which pretty much took care of most of my closing costs. And then I went live with those properties that same year. And by January, February, March, I was actually starting to see a lot of income coming in for the summer months. And then I started quickly recognizing, and I think it was in January, right after I sat down with my CPA who had finalized my 2021 returns. So this is January of 2022. And he helped me recognize, dude, congratulations, you owe 0 federal income tax. And I was like, this is amazing. I was hooked. So I was like game planning at that time as I was slowly pulling away from my medical consulting business. At that company, I think we might have had like 16 to 22 people on the team. We had a pretty big sales team. We had a pretty big like operations fulfillment team, project managers, client success managers. I was doing more of the marketing and the sales stuff. And I had that operation pretty dialed in. I was spending like 20 hours a week just recording video ads, coaching some clients one-to-one, and then just meeting with the sales team. And I was like, I really want to like step away from this medical consulting business and focus on real estate or crypto or credit. Those are my 3 things at the time. I immediately decided real estate is the way because I just bought 2 homes. I was doing really, really well. Shout out to my first partner. Shout out to Georgianne, who did a lot of the designing. JR did the design work. Stephanie did a lot of the design work for the first home as well. Then I was like, I think this is the blueprint. I want to continue doing this. And then I want to employ some of that model where maybe I could also reach out to partners who want to be capital contributors to the business. And I could do some of the grunt work, heavy duty, sweat equity, legwork stuff of finding the deals. I wasn't really negotiating anything at the time. I was just finding deals, pairing them up with literally the same agent, Chantal and Peter, or other agents that I started finding, like Ziona was one that I found that year, a couple other agents that I found that year. So I ended up in the next, I think it was February until July, I ended up closing on 6 homes. 1 month we closed on 3. 6 other homes. 3 I did with partners, and they were pretty much funding all of the down payment closing costs and then the post-close enhancements, which at the time was nowhere near as developed and as insightful as what we coach clients to do right now. But we did do 3 deals and we did the enhancements. We did some design work, minimal design work, but it was passable. Like one of them was actually quite good, and that home still does really well for us. And then the other 3 deals that I did that year, they were completely on my own. And I had to get very creative. So 2021, what I discovered was the game was basically just knowing what amount of net effective tax savings or close to that amount that I would get if I closed on a home at a certain purchase price relative to what is the total entry that I'm going to put into the deal. So for example, if I were buying $1 million home, if it would give me $320,000 in bonus depreciation and I could take all that in year 1, the net effective tax savings on that dollar amount of 320, if I drop my income by 320, if I'm in the 35, 37% tax bracket, that might be very close to $110,000, $120,000, $115,000 of net effective tax savings. Well, what if I could get my down payment and my closing costs all in just to buy that home for right around or even significantly less than that amount. So that was the year that I started exploring creative financing. I joined Pace Morby's Subject to group, shout out Pace. I learned about Subject to, seller financing, a hybrid blend of doing both of those. I even learned about employing seller financing on top of conventional financing in a compliant way with the proper closing structure. And that would allow me to buy homes for essentially no money into the deal. I'd wire, $250,000 in to close, and I get a seller financing note compliantly in a separate closing with a separate title company for like $330,000 back. So for those 3 deals that I did on my own, I did very low money down, or I did one deal example like this, essentially no money down or net negative money down, like I got money coming back to me. But for those 3 deals, the one fundamental thing, and this is why I'm sharing this story, is I learned the hard way that if you are skipping on the design stuff, oh man, it's going to be painful, and it's going to be painful really, really fast. So for those 6 deals, 3 that I did with partners, 3 that I did on my own, you can kind of tell where this is going. The 3 deals that I did with the partners, again, fundamentally, we followed the same play for both of them. We chose deals in the right market. I actually somehow did really good underwriting on all those deals. We were looking at 4 or 5 bedroom homes throughout Westminster, Arvada, Aurora, Colorado. I think pretty much everything was in like the same like 30 block-ish radius of Westminster, Colorado. All the homes were around 450 to I think 650, maybe 700,000 in purchase price. So we found the right homes in the right market. There was a ton of travel demand just outside of Denver. They were the right home types. They were low money down, so that like reverse offset method is that thing that we started establishing very quickly. It was just the net effective tax savings from the deal. What if we could keep the entry similar or slightly less than that amount? Deal basically pays for itself, and then there's money left over, budget permitting, that you can deploy into furnishing, designing, and enhancing the home. So for the 3 deals I did with partners, we had the capital to do the post-close enhancements. For the 3 that I did on my own, because in 2021 I made a lot of money and I saved a lot of money, but I had also bought a lot of crypto. I also did not take profits in crypto in late 2021 or early 2022, which I should have. And I was thinking, I'm just up and to the right, my portfolio all the time. So in 2022, when I continued to want to do deals, I was basically just digging into whatever profits I was taking out of the medical consulting business that month. So I barely had anything to go beyond just closing on the home. So I was like pushing the limit. So the 3 homes that I did on my own, they did not cash flow. The 3 that I did with partners, they either cash flowed right from the jump, or once we got into those summer months, they cash flowed, and they've consistently done really, really well since then. And we still have all 3 of those in the portfolio. So this was the year that I basically discovered, okay, short-term rentals, the real estate game for this is specifically for the tax savings and then the cash flow, I think in that order, doing reverse offset methods. If we can find low money down opportunities, either through secondary home loans or subject to loan takeovers or seller financing where it's low money down, the closing costs are almost non-existent. So again, just anything that we could do to keep the entry, the total cash to close very, very low. But the thesis that I finally developed and got hit in the face with this by doing it the wrong way was definitely the design stuff and the furnishing and the enhancements. So what was great is it was right around that time in middle 2022 that we launched this company, B&B Accelerator. And at that time, we were doing both Airbnb arbitrage, which I could kind of see the writing on the wall. It needed to be like a full-time job. For reference, Airbnb arbitrage is you would rent the property from like a landlord, sign a 12, 24, 36-month lease, and then you would arbitrage by putting it on Airbnb. So you're charging more than what your host, your landlord, is charging you for renting the home. The model did actually work. I think it was very, very risky. I think we quickly found that the only people that it really worked especially well for were the people who weren't just looking to make extra income on the side. It was the clients who were like basically taking it as their full-time business opportunity now. So for reference, we had some amazingly standout clients with that model. There were people who were literally quitting their full-time job or like reducing their dime at their job, or one spouse was like a stay-at-home spouse, and they could easily manage, in 15 to 20 hours per week max, could manage 2, 3, 4, 5 Airbnb short-term rentals through arbitrage. But it was in that calendar year when also decided like, we're gonna also, continue what I've personally been doing and launch this. And then later that year, it quickly became our flagship service, where like this was the main thing that we were offering. And then the arbitrage thing, we offered it to repeat clients, but for the most part, we just let that program wind down. What was really cool is we had the blueprint at the time, and now it's just been getting more and more refined and refined as time has gone on. So which brings me to where I'm at right now. I think short-term rentals are brilliant. I also think circumstances have changed throughout the US real estate market where it is very doable to find really, really good cash flowing opportunities, especially if you're trying to just take over existing short-term rentals that are already, they're the right homes in the right markets, they're the right property types. Oftentimes their furniture is actually like solid. You'll find some homes that the furniture, like we keep 90 to 100% of the furniture in most cases when we take over a home. The value add that we add is we probably put in around $15,000 to sometimes $40,000 of general contractor work, landscaping team work, redesign through either paying a designer or just like swapping out $5,000 to $15,000 worth of furniture, depends, or just adding things in that the home didn't have. Basically just doing all these value add revenue driving enhancements, which are quite simple. The most complex one that we'll ever do is replacing earth with earth. So fire pits, mini putting greens, artificial putting greens, AstroTurf, literally just adding these things in does numbers, crazy good numbers for improving the revenue on those homes. And then specifically what we've gotten really, really good at over the years is needing to learn how to look at comps in different sub-markets and then know that Airbnb is it's a marketplace. You're competing in a marketplace. So if there are 15 top performers and you're trying to launch a home into those top 15 performers, you're going to be between numbers 1 and 2 or numbers 4 and 5 or numbers 7 and 8 or numbers 9 and 10 or numbers 13 and 14. So you're going to fall somewhere in that rank and file, rank ordered list of who's making the least and who's making the most. And then what we got really good at is just recognizing the demand in the markets that we're in. They typically, over any like 2 or 3 year period, they don't really like materially change year to year. There are slightly up years, there are slightly down years. I've now been in Denver, Westminster, Colorado market for the last like 4 years. 2021 I wasn't live for the full year. I guess 2022 was my full year. But when we were live with the properties in each of those 2 years, we were still riding the like post-COVID boom of everybody just wants to get out and travel. 2023 was definitely a recalibration year. 2024 was overall solid. 2025 has picked up exceptionally well, I think, for the majority of clients. I think there are other factors playing in where there are different platforms that are now taking a set of market share away from Airbnb, which is actually really, really good for all the hosts and all of the guests who travel on the platform. So we've started seeing way more revenue coming from VRBO, which is surprising. When I first launched, and probably my first year and a half, operating in Colorado, and then I started doing stuff in Sarasota, Florida, I really didn't see any revenue, if anything at all, from VRBO in my first like year and a half. I started seeing that platform pick up. So the nights that I wasn't getting booked on Airbnb, they were getting booked on VRBO, which was really cool. And then honestly, just in full transparency, in the last like 3 to 6 months, Booking.com has been absolutely crushing for me and for other clients. Expedia has also become really, really solid. It's now a staple in like 2 or 3 of my homes portfolios where in the last like 6 months, I think over like 20% of our revenue has come from a blend of Booking.com and Expedia. Google Vacation Stays is another platform that is a dark horse candidate to take another massive chunk of revenue share from Airbnb. So from a macro trend, I really like where the short-term rental market is going. I'm still really, really bullish on it. I'm starting to do more short-term rentals in different markets that I've never done before. This is also the first year that I'm refinancing properties. So I'm just waiting for like one more rate cut to happen. And then I'll probably do one refi in October of this year, which is kind of like the final hour that I can do anything in order to close on like 15 to 35 day timeline, depending upon the deal type and the deal structure, and get that property live before the end of the year for myself. A couple of macro events and trends that are happening that I really, really like for the short-term rental market. One, so Airbnb, earlier this year, they launched the services platform for their platform. So what this specifically means is you had Airbnb guest stays, you had Airbnb experiences, which if you saw that there were like excursions and other things you could book in the general vicinity of where your stay was going to be at. And then recently, within the last like 5 or 6 months, they've been making a push to get more people to book services through their platform. And what's really, really cool, in full transparency, I was watching NFL football last night, Sunday night. What was cool was I saw, and I love watching ads, for example. I'm an advertiser at heart, so I love to see, what advertisers are pushing. Airbnb ran a really, really cool spot. I think it was like, it might have been 45 seconds. I think it was too long to be 30, 45 to 60. And they just talked about 3 key services that are like the ones they're going to push. Private chef, a massage therapist, and then like a yoga professional or a yoga teacher coming through. And what's really cool about this is Airbnb, what their goal is they just want to bring in more users to their platform. So I think they're trying to also exit their business again, or just bring in other venture capital funds. And this is what the VCs want to see them do. They want to see them grow and expand and become an almost the everything app, which is a big buzzword in the SaaS world. But they definitely want to just find ways to bring in more users to the platform, because the more users that you bring and keep on a platform, you can kind of cross-sell them or cross-rotate or move them from service to service or from product to product to not be confused with the label of services that they're offering. So for example, if you already are somebody who's, 25 to 45 years old, male, female, whatever, it's like an 80% likelihood that you've at least looked for an Airbnb in the past like 12 months as an alternative to like a hotel stay or another like short-term rental accommodation. What they now want to see is that more people are starting to use the platform for services. So for example, if you need to hire a massage therapist, a chef, somebody who's going to be like a local caterer, local DJ, local, the example from the commercial last night, yoga teacher. What Airbnb is trying to do is they just want to bring more people onto the platform because they already recognize they're starting to lose market share to some of those other competitors. So Booking.com has gotten much more significant for short-term rental accommodations that are non-hotels. Same thing with Expedia. Google Vacation Stays. I think what Airbnb recognized is they're trying to have some foothold on like their unique competitive advantage because a lot of these other platforms are now cutting in to the one unique advantage that they had, which was Airbnb was the one-stop shop for looking for non-traditional short-term rental accommodations, which basically means non-hotels, and then staying in apartments or condos or single-family homes or townhomes or whatever. So I personally see myself still continuing the same trend. I'll probably buy $3 to $5 million. I'll kind of like augment up my goals for short-term rental purchases over the years, especially now that I'm playing with, I call it house money. Like I'm getting to refinance homes. I'm not having to pull equity out of my bank account, like literally the cash on hand that I have. I now get to pull funds as equity from my properties as I get them appraised for significantly higher. Like some of my homes, one home has gone up literally 40% in the last almost 4 years since I've owned it. So that home is perfectly ripe for a cash out refi. I'm waiting to see when my lender will approve me for 6% down or 5.85% down through my private credit union for the lowest origination fee, the lowest interest rate, close on the home in a personal guarantee, which is fine, and then just pull out hundreds of thousands of dollars for that home. And I can't wait because that was one of the biggest homes that I had bought in the first year and a half that I was buying rentals as well. So I think everything in terms of what we're doing with the company is also brilliant. There's some really, really cool, I would say, leapfrog improvements that we've made. Number one, just leapfrogging ourselves in terms of like, what did we do in 22 and 23 and 24? What are some of our competitors doing? I don't really know any of our competitors by name. I hear prospective clients kind of bringing them up on calls. I think the number one biggest differentiator that we bring is, number one, I think we genuinely care. I'm a founder who hasn't really removed myself from the business. We don't have like 6 different products that we sell. I don't have a massive sales team. I'm literally still taking like 40 to 50 of those calls every single month, probably enrolling like 12 to 15, sometimes 15 to 20 clients per month. And I'm the one who's building the relationship. Same thing with my business partner, also taking some of those calls. The main differentiator with us is we're brilliant at finding good deals, I think unequivocally, without a doubt. We've literally had other competitors hop into our program, pose as though they're a client, get access to our IP, to a deal portal, and then I uncover, after a few quick searches, they actually work for like another company, they misrepresented themselves, they either committed fraud, or they did something as simple where somebody just literally bought my like $7 product to see all the deals that we have available when I used to sell this product. Because it was a useful tool for people to just pay something very small before they pay a big dollar amount to work with us. So anyway, I saw those people like, again, I don't really think, they're like 1 or 2 guys that I think will be good and they probably do a great service. But then, we do a great service, they do a great service in terms of finding deals and underwriting them and then kind of coaching you what to do post-close, which we are very, very hands-on post-close. We are literally scheduling the people to go do the things so that when you show up at the property, everybody else is showing up, you're shaking hands, things are getting done. And then, 2-3 weeks later after that visit, you're typically live with the property. Month to 3 months in, you're seeing it outperform your projections. And then you're part of my 70% of repeat buyers who are ready to do your next deal within like 6 to 12 months of having completed the first one, or oftentimes very much earlier than 6 months, sometimes as early as like 2 to 6 months after you close. The big value add that I know we've worked really, really hard to get even better at, because we are the creative finance guys. We love communicating directly to sellers and trying to remove agents from deals. So our biggest value add, typically from the lens of clients who decide to work with us, is we get the program to basically pay for itself multiple times over just by literally finding a seller who's willing to, cut the relationship with their listing agent. If the deal's been on market for over 180 days, they can compliantly do it. Another compliant way is making sure that we'll present an offer to the listing agent, and we'll also tell the seller that we presented it. If the listing agent or if the seller doesn't see that offer getting pushed to him or her from his or her listing agent, then we say both parties, hey, this is a straight up gotcha moment. You were compliantly supposed to represent your seller. You're supposed to field all the offers. You're supposed to present all the offers to your seller. That was literally your listing agreement with the seller. That's why they're cutting you in on this commission. You didn't do this. So we have one of 2 options. The seller can just point blank compliantly break the relationship right now, and we can buy it direct to that seller. We'll save the seller, $30,000 to $95,000 in commission fees, depending upon the size of the deal and what he was, planning to pay both agents. Or we can keep the agent on there, but they're going to have to take a haircut because they weren't doing their effing job. So we will just always outperform, I think, literally any other company just on getting people seller's credits. So seller credits or a seller concession, depending upon the state that you're in. So like 15, 25, 35, 45. We even recently got a $55,000 seller credit on a deal in the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee. I think it was like 1.4 million purchase price. And that home also underappraised too. So we won twice for the client. So program fee, we literally pay for ourselves multiple times over. And then another main value add that I do really like about what we've added in, we've just gotten even more aggressive with supporting post-close. Now pretty much every client, we're pairing them up with a designer, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The only clients that we don't pair up with designers are ones who have a spouse who's an interior designer. Shout out Joe with Lisa. Shout out Shardul with Mayanka. And then also clients who they've at least done a short-term rental before. So for example, I think Billy and Ashley in our program right now, they've arbitraged Airbnb properties before. I think they own another short-term rental and they're putting in an offer on their home. They're going to manage the property and design it themselves. So they don't want a designer because they don't need one. They're going to do the work themselves. Yeah, just supporting post-close I think has been a tremendous leap for us. Even scenarios where clients just have issues post-close, I think one of the biggest things we've also tried to improve, and I think this is another stair step up for us, that we crossed, I think, in the last 3 to 6 months, is just doing scheduled check-ins with clients post-close and then making it clear, hey, even if you can't hop on a call, like we're proactively reaching out, we're messaging you in Slack, we want to check in, we want to see the listing, we want to see how everything is going. We also oftentimes know the co-hosts that they're working with because either I or one of my business partners typically hop on with anywhere from like 3, one time it was like 10 to 12, but now it's closer to like 3 to 6 co-hosts every other Friday. Before I had my firstborn son, I was doing this the first and third Friday of every single month. I'm going to start this back up again in another like 2 or 3 weeks, literally just masterminding. So we would follow like a 3-part agenda. Number 1, just celebrating wins. So if you had a big booking, if you just launched a property and it's already performing above KPI, if you had a property that was struggling for whatever reason, now you got it into KPI or above KPI, that was typically how we would start the calls. And then the second part of the call is every co-host would have the floor to just showcase any listing that was either from a client or a non-client, because there's a mastermind for all of us to benefit, and then just showcase how the new listing ramp up process has been going. That part of the call to me was honestly one of my favorite parts because we would pretty much all sit around and just diagnose the same thing that like 90% of the people would see on the call at the same time. And literally it was always number 1, the most common one was just, hey, you need to redo your photos. So whoever took these photos, you should either ask for your money back or just, don't even F around with waiting for that, and then just literally hire one of the vendors from our shortlist. So like some of the best photographers in every city or county or submarket where we do a lot of deals. So like submarkets where we do the most amount of deals. We have a great photographer. We actually just found another one in the Smokies. This guy is really good. The Poconos is a little bit larger, but most photographers will still, they'll travel for like 2 hours, which is pretty much the like end to end from one side of the Poconos to the other. It's like 8 different cities. And then the Panhandle of Florida. So I'll have Destin, Miramar Beach, Santa Rosa Beach. So we, on those co-host calls, for example, one of my favorite things was to see was, oh man, there's like so much validity to the theory, to the thesis statements that we've come up with, seeing how they've worked. And then also see the material improvement. Like in full transparency, we've definitely have had clients who have skipped the post-close enhancements, even though they basically 100% guaranteed, I'm not going to skip these come hell or high water. Like I'm going to the property. I'm not going to let my busy schedule get in the way. And then there was time, this was like mid last year, when almost every client was saying, hey, I'm going to go to it, the weekend after, 2 weeks after. And I was like, great, we're going to make sure that we're here to schedule those people to visit the property for you. And then for whatever reason, like it just didn't materialize. And those clients definitely felt that learning curve of, hey, I'm 3 months in and I'm not seeing the average daily rate. I'm not seeing the occupancy. I'm not seeing the bookings. I'm not seeing the revenue. I'm losing money. So it's like, hey, we got to have this come to Jesus moment where it's like all the stuff that we mutually agreed that we were going to support you with post-close and get you to go to the property so that we can get the contractors there, so that we can get the landscaping team there. The furnishing and design team, they can do all this remotely, but a lot of clients were saying, I don't want to do that. I want to keep it as turnkey as possible. Whatever that meant, it's an extra 5 to 10 hours of actual effort for you to coordinate with the design team. It's not that much at all. It's quite simple, especially if you just meet with them and give them the reins on everything from the jump. So that's probably the other coolest thing that we've made massive strides on this year. I don't think there's been a single client that we haven't introduced a designer to, or that a client didn't already coordinate on their own, because sometimes they would get ahead of us and go and find a local designer. Everybody's properties this year are coming out looking amazing. A handful of them have already come out of the gates like 2, 3, 4 months in, pacing to outperform what our annual projections were. We have a couple cool recent case studies. Shardul's example with Mayanka in Panama City Beach. That home, I don't know what the upper limit is going to be for income on that one. It looks like they're pacing to do around 110 to 130 on the calendar year, which is crazy because I think we had that one projected to do like 88. I think they'll also get a pretty significant chunk of income from Booking.com, Expedia. I also think Google Vacation Stays is going to do really, really well in that area. And I also think they're going to get another separate lift from a Black Swan event that's happening throughout the panhandle of Florida, where you're not able to, there are a lot of condo associations that are literally just going to get shut down. Assessment fees are crazy, crazy high for some of those markets. So a lot of these older condos, like people are just going to get foreclosed on, which is really, really sad. But for the people who bought in single family homes or in condo buildings where things were newer and you're not getting hit with like $30,000 to $75,000 HOA assessment fees every single year, which is insane. Like nobody can afford to do that on their $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 homes, condo homes. So Shardul is doing really well. And I think all our clients who are starting to do stuff in the panhandle after, the last 3 to 6 months, I've been harping that I think there's going to be a seismic shift in that market. Now people are getting great deals out there. I think the market's going to correct up nicely. So cash flow, appreciation, I think you get all of those. And then Ganesh was another example, another client who closed on a home in Austin. I think like now 4 months ago, maybe 5 months ago, doing really, really well. I think he's pacing over $10,000 a month on average, half to 70% of that coming on just Airbnb. And then Vrbo is doing really well. Booking.com, Expedia. He booked on or listed on AustinVacay.com, which is another short-term rental platform out there. His co-host is also going to work on getting him live on Google Vacation Stays. So a lot of really amazing trends happening right now. And then the final one, which I'll share here, is because I mentioned earlier on that we are going to be introducing an additional offer. We are going to expand into offering medium-term rentals as a service, pad split. Pad split is basically long-term rentals on steroids. That's really what medium-term rentals is. The opportunity is called co-living. So essentially the narrative that is driving this real estate investment vehicle, and again, we're doing literally both of these. And the reason that we're adding this in is because this right now is our busiest season of the year for short-term rentals. Everybody this year and last year woke up May, June, July, August. And then all of July, August, September, October, November, and even December, we had double-digit closings every single month. For me, it's just personally for me, like that's not the lifestyle that I want to live. Where the first 3, 4, 5 months of the year, I'm pulling my hair out, cursing a business because nobody wants to like move and do anything. And then the final like 4, 5, 6 months out of the year, doing what I'm doing right now, which is like minimum 50-hour work weeks. There are very rarely any days where I work less than 10 hours a day, and then oftentimes it's 60, 70 hours plus. Sometimes there are literally 10 to 14 hour work days where I do another, 2 to 4 hour session in like 7 p.m. to 11, sometimes midnight hour. And then also doing that on like a Saturday or a Sunday as well. I have my firstborn son, so I need a little more like stability in my year. So I'm going to take, the final half of like December off this year, the first like 2 weeks of January off this year. And then we'll also introduce a medium-term rental offer. So it's basically just helping people, the exact same offer that we'll have. We'll help you find, negotiate, buy, close on, and then go live with a medium-term rental and pad split. So for that offer, it's very, very cool for people who are a little more risk averse because pad split is pretty validated. We have it from the inside scoop that their company has a 60,000 person plus waiting list right now as tenants for a room. So let me go back to the narrative. So what's driving this? So co-living is essentially a solution that solves for the I don't have enough money to personally afford to live on my own in a $1,200, $1,500, $2,000, $2,500 per month apartment or single family home. And I don't have a scenario where I can go and find roommates or mesh well with roommates that I'm going to help organize or looking, joining somebody else's pod of roommates that they already have. Co-living is specifically a solution which is rent by the room, which solves for this. So anywhere from like $220 to $360 per week. Everything is week to week. You as an individual, for example, you can live on your own for $700 to $1,300 per month in almost any scenario with an individual room that is your own. You pay for no utilities. There's no long-term commitments. And this is a great solution, not only solving for the cost of living issue, which has significantly gone up, but also accommodating for like the Gen X, Millennial, Gen Z trend. And this narrative aligns with this, which is no commitment scenario. So what's really cool about pad split is You can literally be week to week. There's no long-term contract. A guest or a tenant can basically give their notice and leave at any point in time. But what is cool for the host, the landlords, which is why this offer is going to blow up for us, Pad Split has some insane numbers. So they've got 93% occupancy on average across all of their portfolio. Average 9-month stay. So guest stay on average, it was something like 30-something weeks, whatever the equivalent of 9 months is, which is absurd. So like 36, 37, 38 weeks or whatever. And the churn to turn time, so how quickly they lose a tenant and then how quickly somebody gets replaced. In most of the markets, it was like 5 to 10 days. So just insane numbers. You can have somebody else manage it. But again, with that offer, like it sounds amazing. So do short-term rentals, right? But there are still like a billion ways to do that stuff wrong. So we've started transitioning some of our portfolio to be more optimized for Pad Split. So in Westminster, Colorado, we have a handful. We have about 20 rooms out there right now across, I don't know if it's 4 or 5 homes. I don't know if the 5th home is live yet. And then we've also explored adding in rooms. So paying a contractor team and an electrician to add in subdivision walls up until the county permits. So I think in each of our areas, we can't do more than 8 rooms, but 8 is like a perfect sweet spot for minimum, 3,000 square feet. If you do anything more rooms than that with less square feet, like you're just going to have problems, according to anecdotal evidence that didn't come from us, but just stuff that we uncovered. So many cool things in the works. But yeah, just wanted to get this video out to you guys, letting you know about some of the FAQs, just our background, where we're going, why we're doing this. I think long term, I really do see myself also scaling the short-term rental stuff. So I've definitely been envious of other people who have really, really cool like 10-ish homes in their portfolio that are around like $800,000 to $1.6 million a piece. I definitely have more homes than that, but the average value of my home is significantly less. And one thing I'd like to shift over to as time goes on is a larger portfolio, but of fewer homes. So I want to consistently stair step up in the average purchase price on stuff. So for example, 2025, what my approach is probably going to be is probably like $5 million worth of luxury short-term rentals, and then around like $5 million worth of multifamily and pad split. So it's basically like buying boutique motels and turning them into pad splits. So literally buying 1 room or sometimes even 2 rooms in those motels, and then just converting the whole thing over to pad split, medium-term rental living. We're going to put the spin on it. It's like micro-family. So I want to do short-term rentals and I want to do micro-family. So more premium luxury short-term rental properties. Just again, larger properties, same or similar cash-on-cash return, but just getting into more expansive like projects. Like for example, I've seen some, and I just have admiration for these people who definitely have better portfolios than what I have right now. Seeing people drop like 300 to 500 grand on some of their renos, like their renovations, their enhancements. It's just like, I kind of want to do that. I think a really cool opportunity for me next year as well would be some BRRRRs. So buying some like really amazing luxury properties or something that could be luxury, but adding in like $200,000 to $350,000 worth of enhancements and renovations, and then getting that thing to appraise for hopefully like 40, 50, 60% more than what I bought it at, and then having more than enough spread to pull all of my equity out and then fund my other deals that year, or fund the next rehab, or fund the next boutique motel that we're going to convert into a pad split. So I'm absolutely loving this game. It's very stressful to run this as a company for other people, but it's insanely enjoyable. I think we have a really cool killer team. I think we have clients who love us. In fact, Jack on my team, he just gave this really cool win from a client today, which was just got off a call with Prudhvi. Shout out Prudhvi. You and your spouse have been amazing to work with, and we can't wait to do the next deal with you guys. And his feedback was that we are extremely professional, and on top of it, this has made everything much easier for him. So that's great feedback. I said, excellent. And then I made a funny comment, which is not appropriate to share after that. It's funny at no one's expense. It was just bad language. So yeah, I mean, so there's the case in point. The team is really dialed. We're expanding the team. We're always looking for more junior underwriters. So kind of like a virtual assistant level role where you're just going to be looking at deals literally for like 40 to 50 hours per week, taking like an hour and a half break multiple times a day because your brain and your eyes are just going to get exhausted until agentic AI can come in and do this for us. But now guys, we're just absolutely loving this. If you're watching this video, I hope this gives you some transparency and a little bit of insight into the space, why we love doing it, why we love consistently doing it, why clients love doing it. We have clients who they've said this is, the next 7 years is what this is going to look like for them. So they buy real estate for 10 years straight. They save hundreds of thousands of dollars every single year on their tax bill. So instead of deploying millions over that decade to the IRS and their inefficient state government, their Department of Revenue at whatever state where you pay your state tax, instead they're plugging millions into their real estate portfolio. And then by year 4, 5, 6, 7, like you're probably consistently refinancing and pulling equity out of a lot of those deals that you did many, many years ago. And I'm starting to play that game. It's what I call the snowball effect. So the infinite money glitch game is just, instead of funding the IRS, fund your own deals. And then the snowball effect is essentially where I'm, starting to live in this world right now. And now I'm starting to get, okay, I didn't realize how big your real estate goals can get. And how fun it can be. Like now, real estate is my full-time thing. So I buy deals on my own, I buy deals with partners, and then we run this business for clients. And now we get to start doing more additional deals with partners and on my own in different avenues. So not multifamily, but microfamily. And you're gonna see us launch something with that branding here quite soon. Stay tuned in the next 3 months or so. But doing more short-term rentals, more luxury stuff, continuously helping clients with this. But yeah, the medium-term rental thing, the pad split stuff, personally the reason I'm the most excited for that is because I think they're just generally, I think there are probably 10 times the amount of people in the entire US who want to do long-term rentals than the volume of people who want to do short-term rentals. So just by us having a larger pool of people who want to do the thing, we'll grow that business unit quite well. And then we'll never discontinue the short-term rental stuff. I think what we might end up doing is just offering that only to repeat clients at a certain point. It is quite, doable for us to scale this to hundreds and hundreds of additional deals per year. I think the honest challenge is we just don't have the audience who wants to consistently do deals in January and February and March and April and May. April, May, June, July is when everybody starts waking up. June, July is when everybody, really wakes up and is like, okay, I got to do this. And then most people really start doing stuff June, July, August, September, October, which is that's just too much volatility for me in the stage of my life where I'm at. So having both of those offers is going to be super fun for us. So I hope you found this useful. If you like more content like this, definitely let me know. And if you're a high-income earner making over $400,000 per year, continue checking out our content. We have other great resources talking about 100% bonus depreciation, how we underwrite deals, how we find deals. But definitely click on mybnbaccelerator.com or click the link right around this. And it should take you to our homepage where you can check out all the case studies, the client reviews. You can go to our Trustpilot page. You can see example deals that we've done for other clients and how things have cash flowed, how things have given people net effective tax savings. And then, real estate comes with risk. Those two things are definitely side by side with each other. But a super wise person, and I think it was actually Alex Hormozy who was coining this. But no, actually, you know what? Shout out Alex Becker. I can't believe I'm shouting him out on this channel. Hyros, we use that software for our ads all the time. Alex Becker highlighted becoming wealthy is essentially just about ultimately managing risk exceptionally well. You took exceptional risk. If you're watching this video and you're an engineer or you're a software developer, you took the risk of learning how to be brilliant at coding or building software or just being a super quality, talented project manager in whatever field that you're in. And the risk that you took was only the insanely good people in that niche actually get paid. So you took the risk of you have to be in the top 10%, 5%, maybe 1% in your field for this whole career path to even work out. You've taken on other risk in saying no to certain opportunities and maybe working at a startup for 1 to 5 years. Or you've maybe taken on exceptional risk launching your own business. I would say everything I'm doing is exceptionally risky. We ran a real estate company during literally the highest frickin' interest rate period that sustained for almost 2.5 years since mid 2022, I want to say, late 2022. Rates were just literally insane and nearly all-time record highs. So the proportion in which you're willing to take risk and manage risk is very in proportion to the amount of wealth that you'll generate. And if you look at some of the other risk and downside with your career path and some of your peers who are making more, making less than you, I might not have explained that scenario quite the best, but the anecdote certainly holds true. That if you can learn to take risk and take bigger risk and manage risk and get even better at it, you will be prosperous. The biggest thing that we do for clients is, and I tell people this all the time, we're literally looking at over 1,000 deals per week and disqualifying 990 of them before we even send anything over to you. So when we come to de-risking as much as possible, we say no to an exorbitantly high amount of deals so that when we do say yes to something, it's backed by a pretty solid stamp of not just approval from the gut, but like diligence in underwriting. Like I think we've become the most competent underwriting team on the planet. If you put anybody on our team 1-to-1 versus almost anybody else out there, I think the projections, almost anybody else out there, I think the projections and the assessments that we make and also the suggestions for the enhancements, we're rivaling, if not outperforming, literally everybody. There isn't any other one-stop shop that I've seen come anywhere close to matching the whole process and the level of acumen and the actual level of deliverable. And then again, specifically the repeat business, like 70%. Like, I don't know if you guys use Net Promoter Score or any other customer surveying metric, but a 70% repeat buyer for something as high ticket as what we're doing, we're pretty proud of that. And I think that's what will always draw us back into wanting to do more for this business. So super excited to work with you. Like this video, give us a subscribe, leave a comment if you like this, leave a comment for special pricing if you want that special pricing. And if we ever schedule a call and I see you on there and you said, hey, I watched that whole video and I want the special pricing, I'll give it to you. So yeah, keep checking out our channel. Go to mybnbaccelerator.com or just click the link around this video and then schedule a call. Would love to speak. Would love to help you with your short-term rental journey. Send this to a friend. Let's do this. Talk soon.